Hello and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or searched desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about a topic that I talk about a lot with my clients, and that is nursing limits, right? So why are nursing limits important? Why do I talk about it a lot? And why might you want to be listening to this podcast? Well, nursing limits are important because if we as the parent want to change anything about our little's nursing patterns around sleep, that can often involve setting a limit, right? Changing something about how long they're nursing, if we're going to nurse them at that wake, how much they're going to nurse overnight, or even in the larger context of night weaning. And it's not all or nothing. So, it could just be about a few less feeds a night, or unlatching when they are just staying latched indefinitely, and that's kind of, giving you some aversion or making it difficult to sleep. So there's lots of sleep-specific reasons we might want to set a nursing limit. And then there's, of course, actual nursing reasons you might want to set a nursing limit, like your toddler is trying to stand on their head while they nurse all the time, and you just need a little bit of manners, a little bit of body respect, body autonomy, in order to set a limit and, continue to enjoy nursing. And certainly if you're trying to wean, nursing limits are a big part of that. So it's a big topic that touches on a lot of different pieces of nursing and of sleep. So what is the limit, right? It's simply our setting different expectations around a feed or our response to them asking to feed. So it could be not feeding, like right now. It could be shortening a feed, right? It could be offering something else instead of a feed. And having tools and ways to do that work for your little one. Now, I am not talking about young babies here, right? And really, for most of the first year, nursing is not something that we can set explicit limits around for an understanding perspective, right? They don't have the ability to understand a limit, right? In the way that a toddler does, even a young toddler, even before they, are fully verbal, they can understand a lot more. Where's the line? When does a toddler start to understand a limit? It depends. Depends on their receptive language, so their ability to understand what you're saying. It depends on how consistent you are about setting that limit, right? It's certainly easier with older toddlers who can understand the verbal part of the limit, right? But, 10, 11-month-olds, 12, 13-month-olds who don't have a ton of receptive language, you can still set limits with them. It's just going to look a little differently. So where do we start, right? First is what are you actually trying to solve? What is the problem that you want to set a limit around? Is it you don't want to nurse out and about anymore? Is it just crazy nursing antics? Is it your toddler's decided they need to nurse 5,000 times a night? What does that look like? This is just to get clarity. We're not likely going to start with the actual time that this is happening if we're talking about sleep related, right? And the reason for this is when we're talking about sleep, it's hard, right? It's hard to make changes in the middle of the night. Your COPE is low, your little's COPE is low. And so if we're talking about we want to make some nighttime nursing changes, then we actually want to back up and go, okay, but we need to practice nursing limits first. So has my little ever experienced a nursing limit? Right? Have I ever do that? How do I end a feed on my terms? How do I say not now, right? I'm not going to feed you here, right? How do I communicate to them and how do they react? So as long as your little is nursing enough during the day that this is doable, I always start with daytime nursing limits before trying to do a nighttime nursing limit. Assuming again that we're old enough that we're really setting limits. If we're talking about a 6-month-old that nurses 10 times a night, that's a little bit of a different process, right? We're still technically setting a limit if we're going to, offer other soothing, as opposed to, nursing all those 10 times. But it's not necessarily the same process because they just don't have the ability to work through the situation the same way as a toddler would. So if we're thinking about just about toddlers, close to a year, over a year, toddler time frame. So I almost always start in the day because your cope is better, their cope is better. And it's a better time to experiment with what actually works with them. What do they respond well to, right? And so the idea here is we want this to happen organically and once a day, depending how many times your little is feeding. We don't need to overdo it, especially if the goal is not to wean, right? If the goal is to keep nursing, we don't want to discourage nursing so much that we push them towards weaning. So even just once a day, working on setting a limit and seeing what works is going to pay off. And you figure out what works, right? But also you build confidence. And so you start to realize, oh my goodness, we can get through this, right? And your kiddo starts to realize this is not the end of the world. Like this is something they can process and assimilate. And maybe they don't like it, but they can get through it and you can support them through it. So I think that's a big part, right? The more confident we are in setting our limits with anything, right? The more we're really taking the lead confidently in supporting them, the smoother the process goes, right? If we're all like, oh, I'm scared they're going to get upset and oh, I hate when they get upset and we're really conflicted, we're really doubting ourselves, that actually makes it harder because their nervous system is picking up on our not feeling safe and confident in that decision. And that makes them feel not safe and confident. So the confidence really, really helps. It also gives us a chance to kind of think through like what makes setting limits hard. Is it that we're afraid of their big emotions? Is it that they do really well with us shortening a feed, but really not so great right now at not feeding them? Or maybe the flip, right? It's okay if we don't feed them, but ending a feed is just over the top. And that's helpful information to know when you think about how you're going to set that limit at night. So what do? Well, we practice, right? So it could look like, we're not, little is cueing you to nurse in whatever way they do, words, gestures, whatever, pulling on your shirt, trying to lift it up, doing all that fun, toddler, almost toddler kind of nursing stuff. And you are, yes, we can nurse when some point in the future, right? So maybe you're at the playground. Yes, we can nurse when we get back to the couch, or to the couch. Yes, we can nurse when we get back to the car, right? Yes, we can nurse after mommy's done eating. Or yes, we can nurse after mommy's done clearing the table. So we're saying no, or we're saying not right now, but we're saying it with a yes. Yes, we can nurse, and then a specific thing. And so you can see, like, the older a kiddo is, the more they're going to understand this versus our younger kiddos, right? Another way we can do this is to shorten a feed. Like, okay, we're going to nurse, and then, we're going to be all done soon. And some parents cue that by singing a song. Say, all done. I'm going to sing you a song, and then we'll be all done. Sing like Twinkle Twinkle or ABC or whatever your kiddo likes. And now, okay, all done and unlatch, right? I've had families who count, not in like a, you're in trouble if I count to 5 kind of way, but like, okay, we're going to be all done in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all done for now. Mommy has to go use the bathroom, And so we can practice that controlled end of the feed as well. And again, these opportunities generally crop up throughout the day. Most parents kind of continue feeds or nurse sometimes when they don't want to, right? And that's okay to do, but it's also like looking for those opportunities where you're like, actually, this is a great time where I don't really want to nurse. I don't want a really long feed, and we can practice our limits. And the key here is they might get upset, and that is okay. So we don't want to be afraid of those emotions. Setting a limit with respect and kindness in a responsive way does not mean that they will love that limit, right? The part that makes it responsive is that we are welcoming and supporting whatever emotions they have around it. Like, it's okay to be upset that we're not nursing right now or that we're done nursing right now, and just supporting them through that. And that's important because setting limits at night with nursing is harder because everyone's tired and we want what we want and we want to get back to sleep and our cope is less. So like as an adult, it's easier to get frazzled. And as a little, they're like, what is this? No, right? So I encourage you, to think about, okay, I want to identify what nursing behavior actually is kind of bothering me. And then back it up and say, do we do any daytime nursing limits, right? And if not, let's get them in regular use. Let's see what they respond better to. Let's see what language they respond better to. Let's see what feels good to comfort them if they have big emotions. And let's see what does well to keep us calm and confident in practicing those limits as the parent so you can co-regulate. And obviously, if it's like a total disaster and you're like, maybe this isn't worth it right now, maybe this is not the time to do it, then it's okay, right? Things change. If it's not good now, if it's not working now, it could work in a month. It could work in a couple of months. So don't be discouraged if you pick the not best time and your kiddo's not quite there, right? And if something is really and truly bothering you, it's okay to keep setting that limit, right? If they're twiddling with your other nipple and you're like, I can't, it does not matter if they're upset and don't cope with it. Like, I just cannot handle that, right? It's okay, again, to lovingly set that limit and support them through it. So once you practice during the day, then you can start practicing at night. And that is a much bigger conversation, around how do we reduce feeding frequency, or how do we night wean. But I want you to have this tool that where we should start is with those nursing limits at a time where everyone can cope well with them. And you can really, really experiment, build that confidence, and then take them, into nighttime if that's where the issue lies. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.